Personality type refers to the psychological classification of different types of individuals. Personality types are sometimes distinguished from personality traits, with the latter embodying a smaller grouping of behavioral tendencies. Types are sometimes said to involve qualitative differences between people, whereas traits might be construed as quantitative differences. According to type theories, for example, introverts and extroverts are two fundamentally different categories of people. According to trait theories, introversion and extraversion are part of a continuous dimension, with many people in the middle. Clinically effective personality typologies. Affective personality typologies reveal an increased knowledge and understanding of individuals, as opposed to diminishing knowledge and understanding as occurs in the case of stereotyping. Affective typologies also allow for increased ability to predict clinically relevant information about people and to develop effective treatment strategies. There is an extensive literature on the topic of classifying the various types of human temperament and an equally extensive literature on personality traits or domains. These classification systems attempt to describe normal temperament and personality and emphasize the predominant features of different temperament and personality types. They are largely the province of the discipline of psychology. Personality disorders, on the other hand, reflect the work of psychiatry, a medical specialty, and are disease-oriented. They are classified in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, a product of the American Psychiatric Association. Types versus traits. The term type has not been used consistently in psychology and has become the source of some confusion. Furthermore, because personality test scores usually fall on a bell curve rather than in distinct categories, personality type theories have received considerable criticism among psychometric researchers. One study that directly compared a type instrument to a trait instrument found that the trait measure was a better predictor of personality disorders. Because of these problems, personality type theories have fallen out of favor in psychology. Most researchers now believe that it is impossible to explain the diversity of human personality with a small number of discrete types. They recommend trait models instead, such as the 5-factor model. Type theories. An early form of personality type theory was the 4 temperaments system of Galen. Based on the 4 humors model of Hippocrates, an extended 5 temperaments system based on the classical theory was published in 1958. One example of personality types is type A and type B personality theory. According to this theory, impatient, achievement-oriented people are classified as type A, whereas easy-going, relaxed individuals are designated as type B. The theory originally suggested that type A individuals were more at risk for coronary heart disease, but this claim has not been supported by empirical research. One study suggests that people with type A personalities are more likely to develop personality disorders, whereas type B personalities are more likely to become alcoholics. Developmental psychologist Jerome Kagan is a prominent advocate of type theory. He suggests that shy, withdrawn children are best viewed as having an inhibited temperament, which is qualitatively different from that of other children. As a matter of convenience, trait theorists sometimes use the term type to describe someone who scores exceptionally high or low on a particular personality trait. Hans Eysenck refers to superordinate personality factors as types, and more specific associated traits as traits. Several pop psychology theories rely on the idea of distinctively different types of people. Carl Jung. One of the more influential ideas originated in the theoretical work of Carl Jung as published in the book Psychological Types. The original German-language edition, Psychologische Typen, was first published by Rascher Verlag, Zurich, in 1921. Typologies such as socionics, the MBTI assessment, and the Kierzy temperament sought to have roots in Jungian theory. Jung's interest in typology grew from his desire to reconcile the theories of Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler, and to define how his own perspective differed from theirs. Jung wrote, "In attempting to answer this question, I came across the problem of types, for it is one's psychological type which from the outset determines and limits a person's judgment." He concluded that Freud's theory was extroverted and Adler's introverted. Jung became convinced that acrimony between the Adlerian and Freudian camps was due to this unrecognized existence of different fundamental psychological attitudes, which led Jung to conceive the two controversial theories of neurosis as manifestations of a type antagonism. 4 functions of consciousness. In the book, Jung categorized people into primary types of psychological function. Jung proposed the existence of 2 dichotomous pairs of cognitive functions: the rational functions, thinking and feeling; the irrational functions, sensation and intuition. Jung went on to suggest that these functions are expressed in either an introverted or extroverted form. According to Jung, the psyche is an apparatus for adaptation and orientation, and consists of a number of different psychic functions. Among these he distinguishes 4 basic functions: sensation, perception by means of the sense organs; intuition, perceiving in unconscious way or perception of unconscious contents; thinking, function of intellectual cognition, the forming of logical conclusions; feeling, function of subjective estimation. Thinking and feeling functions are rational, while sensation and intuition are non-rational. According to Jung, rationality consists of figurative thoughts, feelings or actions with reason, a point of view based on objective value, which is set by practical experience. Non-rationality is not based in reason. Jung notes that elementary facts are also non-rational, not because they are illogical but because, as thoughts, they are not judgments. Attitudes. Extraversion and introversion. Analytical psychology distinguishes several psychological types or temperaments: extrovert, introvert. Extraversion means outward turning, and introversion means inward turning. These specific definitions vary somewhat from the popular usage of the words. The preferences for extraversion and introversion are often called attitudes. Each of the cognitive functions can operate in the external world of behavior, action, people, and things, or the internal world of ideas and reflection. People who prefer extraversion draw energy from action. They tend to act, then reflect, then act further. If they are inactive, their motivation tends to decline. To rebuild their energy, extroverts need breaks from time spent in reflection. Conversely, those who prefer introversion expend energy through action. They prefer to reflect, then act, then reflect again. To rebuild their energy, introverts need quiet time alone, away from activity. An extrovert's flow is directed outward toward people and objects, an introvert's is directed inward toward concepts and ideas. Contrasting characteristics between extroverts and introverts include the following. Extroverts are action-oriented, while introverts are thought-oriented. Extroverts seek breadth of knowledge and influence, while introverts seek depth of knowledge and influence. Extroverts often prefer more frequent interaction, while introverts prefer more substantial interaction. Extroverts recharge and get their energy from spending time with people, while introverts recharge and get their energy from spending time alone. The attitude type could be thought of as the flow of libido. The functions are modified by 2 main attitude types: extraversion and introversion. In any person, the degree of introversion or extraversion of one function can be quite different from that of another function. 4 functions: sensation, intuition, thinking, feeling. Jung identified 2 pairs of psychological functions: the 2 perceiving functions, sensation and intuition; the 2 judging functions, thinking and feeling. Sensation and intuition are the information-gathering functions. They describe how new information is understood and interpreted. Individuals who prefer the sensation function are more likely to trust information that is in the present, tangible and concrete. that is, information that can be understood by the five senses. They tend to distrust hunches, which seem to come out of nowhere. They prefer to look for details and facts. For them, the meaning is in the data. On the other hand, those who prefer the intuition function tend to trust information that is more abstract or theoretical, that can be associated with other information. They may be more interested in future possibilities. They tend to trust those flashes of insight that seem to bubble up from the unconscious mind. The meaning is in how the data relates to the pattern or theory. Thinking and feeling are the decision-making functions. The thinking and feeling functions are both used to make rational decisions, based on the data received from their information-gathering functions. Those who prefer the thinking function tend to decide things from a more detached standpoint, measuring the decision by what seems reasonable, logical, causal, consistent and matching a given set of rules. Those who prefer the feeling function tend to come to decisions by associating or empathizing with the situation, looking at it from the inside, and weighing the situation to achieve, on balance, the greatest harmony, consensus and fit, considering the needs of the people involved. As noted already, people who prefer the thinking function do not necessarily, in the everyday sense, think better than their feeling counterparts. The opposite preference is considered an equally rational way of coming to decisions. Similarly, those who prefer the feeling function do not necessarily have better emotional reactions than their thinking counterparts. Dominant function. All four functions are used at different times depending on the circumstances. However, one of the four functions is generally used more dominantly and proficiently than the other three, in a more conscious and confident way. According to Jung, the dominant function is supported by two auxiliary functions. The fourth and least conscious function is always the opposite of the dominant function. Jung called this the inferior function, and Myers sometimes also called it the shadow function. Jung's typological model regards psychological type as similar to left or right-handedness. Individuals are either born with or developed certain preferred ways of thinking and acting. These psychological differences are sorted into four opposite pairs, or dichotomies, with the resulting 8 possible psychological types. People tend to find using their opposite psychological preferences more difficult, even if they can become more proficient with practice and development. The four functions operate in conjunction with the attitudes. Each function is used in either an extroverted or introverted way. A person whose dominant function is extroverted intuition, for example, uses intuition very differently from someone whose dominant function is introverted intuition. The 8 psychological types are as follows: extroverted sensation, introverted sensation, extroverted intuition, introverted intuition, extroverted thinking, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, introverted feeling. Jung theorized that the dominant function characterizes consciousness, while its opposite is repressed and characterizes unconscious behavior. Generally, we tend to favor our most developed dominant function, while we can broaden our personality by developing the others. Related to this, Jung noted that the unconscious often tends to reveal itself most easily through a person's least developed inferior function. The encounter with the unconscious and development of the underdeveloped functions thus tend to progress together. When the unconscious inferior functions fail to develop, imbalance results. In psychological types, Jung describes in detail the effects of tensions between the complexes associated with the dominant and inferior differentiating functions in highly one-sided individuals. Personality types and worrying. The relationship between worry, the tendency of one's thoughts and mental images to revolve around and create negative emotions, and the experience of a frequent level of fear, and Jung's model of psychological types has been the subject of recent studies. In particular, correlational analysis has shown that the tendency to worry is significantly related to Jung's introversion and feeling dimensions. Similarly, worry has shown robust correlations with shyness and fear of social situations. The warrior's tendency to be fearful of social situations might make them appear more withdrawn. Jung's model suggests that the superordinate dimension of personality is introversion and extraversion. Introverts are likely to relate to the external world by listening, reflecting, being reserved, and having focused interests. Extroverts, on the other hand, are adaptable and in tune with the external world. They prefer interacting with the outer world by talking, actively participating, being sociable, expressive, and having a variety of interests. Jung also identified two other dimensions of personality: intuition, sensing, and thinking, feeling. Sensing types tend to focus on the reality of present situations, pay close attention to detail, and are concerned with practicalities. Intuitive types focus on envisioning a wide range of possibilities to a situation and favor ideas, concepts, and theories over data. Thinking types use objective and logical reasoning in making their decisions, are more likely to analyze stimuli in a logical and detached manner, be more emotionally stable, and score higher on intelligence. Feeling types make judgments based on subjective and personal values. In interpersonal decision-making, feeling types tend to emphasize compromise to ensure a beneficial solution for everyone. They also tend to be somewhat more neurotic than thinking types. The warrior's tendency to experience a fearful affect could be manifested in Jung's feeling type.